Amen. Faith that makes a difference. Now, this is Black History Month, and in this month, which used to be just a week, we are reminded of the great works that the people of color have done and continue to do. We are reminded of the struggles and the obstacles that we have overcome and are still overcoming. We are reminded of black codes that kept our people down, lynching that terrorized our communities, the criminalization of black life through Jim Crow, mass incarceration, and the new Jim Crow. We are reminded of those things during this month and every day of the year, and we're reminded that we have overcome, and we are still overcoming. We are reminded of the sacrifices and struggles of those who fought for our freedom. So this is a great month to celebrate people of color. And normally during this month we hear something about Martin Luther King because he was such a central figure to the civil rights movement. And when we think of Martin Luther King, we normally focus on the March on Selma, or his speeches or his sermons, as well as the March on Washington and the I Have a Dream speech. Those are the things that we normally mention about Martin Luther King. But what we don't mention a lot is what was called the Poor People's Campaign. The Poor People's Campaign was a 1968 effort to gain economic justice for poor people in the United States. It was organized by Martin Luther King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. So in December 1967, just 4 months before MLK was assassinated, King announced to the press that the Poor People's Campaign was coming to Washington, D.C. And in that April, the goal of that was to demand that President Lyndon B. Johnson and Congress take action to help poor people get employment, health care, and decent housing. That tactic of marching through the U.S. Capitol and demonstrating at the federal agencies to convince Congress to pass major anti-poverty legislation. It was a unique approach where the participants would physically stay there, living on the National Mall in camps dubbed as Resurrection City. They would stay there until they saw results. The campaign demanded economic and human rights for poor Americans of diverse backgrounds. After presenting an organized set of demands to Congress and executive agencies, participants set up a 3,000-person tent city on the Washington Mall, where they stayed for 6 weeks. This was 40 years before Occupy Wall Street. And so the Poor People's Campaign was motivated by a desire of economic justice, the idea that all people should have what they need to live for. King and the SCLC shifted their focus to the Poor People's Campaign after observing the gains in civil rights and realized those gains in the laws had not improved the material conditions of many African Americans. They found out that just because you change the laws don't mean you change the hearts of everybody. Amen. The Poor People's Campaign was a multiracial effort including African Americans, whites, Mexican Americans, Puerto Ricans, and Native Americans, all aimed at alleviating poverty regardless of race. And it was just 4 months after King announced this Poor People's Campaign that he was shot. And it has always been my thought that his assassination was connected to the Poor People's Campaign. I've always felt that this was the last straw for those who want to maintain power in this country. I've always maintained that power in this country was connected to keeping poor people poor and rich people rich. Beloved, there is a dark, gruesome underbelly in this country that is fueled by greed and by hatred. And that darkness can only be maintained by keeping wealth disparities among the rich and the poor. So to counter the darkness, the people of light, that's us by the way, must shine in this dark world. The people of God must raise their voices for the oppressed. The people of God must shine, and so our faith must make a difference. Beloved, our faith cannot be a faith that is just personal. It cannot be a faith that is just private. Our faith cannot be something that is hidden, but our faith must be shared. Our faith must be open. Our faith must cause us to be the salt and the light of the world. Our faith must make a difference. See, true faith must be expressed in action. That is why James is recorded to say, faith without works is dead. In other words, show me someone who has a true, genuine faith in God, and I will show you a person who's working to make a difference. Show me a person of true faith, genuine faith, and I will show you a person who's working for the Lord to better their world. As a matter of fact, it's recorded in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 27. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress. See, beloved, we are called to help the needy, to assist the weak, and to come to the aid of the powerless. We are called to share with those who go without. We've got a mandate to ally ourselves with the outcast, the left out, and the looked over. We have a commission to cry out for those who have no voice and to shout aloud for those who have been silenced by oppression. We are called, as recorded in Micah 6:8, to act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with our God. And beloved, you understand that's the calling that God has on us, to speak up for those who have no voice, to speak to power for those who don't have any power. And you do know when you do that, there's a blessing that the scriptures say you'll get when you look out for the poor. For Psalms 41:1-3 says, happy are those that consider the poor. The Lord delivers them in their day of trouble. Proverbs 19:17 says, whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord and will be repaid in full. You don't believe me? Proverbs 28:27 says, whoever gives to the poor will lack nothing, but one who turns a blind eye will get many a curse. Proverbs 22:9, those who are generous are blessed, for they share their bread with the poor. You've got to understand there's more than 300 scriptures in the Bible that speak to the poor and what we're supposed to do for the poor. For God knows God is not like Ronald Reagan with a trickle-down theory, thinking that you'll bless the rich and somehow they'll just sprinkle it down on the poor folk. Guess what? Rich folk have a tendency to hold on to all the resources. So we are called in this day and age to challenge the systems of oppression and organized efforts to enslave people with unjust rules and regulations. We got to speak up for the abused and the neglected. We got to speak about the financial abuses that go on in our country. We've got to declare that certain practices are designed to help the rich get richer and the poor stay poor. We've got to challenge those who create financial instruments that have no real purpose but to cheat the system and take advantage of the unsuspecting. I wish I had an amen, but I'm going to keep on preaching. We got to speak out against the banks that develop ways to siphon off your hard-earned money but won't give you a loan, and you've been banking with them for 20 years. And we got to call to the carpet politicians, local and nationally, who create laws knowing that they encourage predatory lending in our most poorest communities and deceptive practices that target the poor and the desperate. We've got to speak up against ungodly interests that is opposed on those who live in poor areas by check cashing establishments and predatory financial establishments. We got to speak up for those who need affordable housing. We got to speak for those who are forced to live in corrals of poverty and destitution and concentrated despair. We got to speak out against laws that allow landlords to take your money at the end of the month but won't fix your roof in the middle of the month. We got to speak up for those who need health care, those that have worked hard but now in the twilight years got to decide whether they're going to eat or take their diabetes medicine. Look, we got to speak out against a culture that thinks health care is an industry when health care should be a system to help everybody. We got to speak out against the rising cost of medicine, and they just raise the rates just for any old reason, but knowing that folk can't pay it. We got to rally to the side of those who work hard but can't make a living wage. Basically, our faith must make a difference.